So let's move on to this next bit. This is official matters. Basically, how do you actually become in an official relationship? How do you get there? How do you go from the first date or messaging on, I know you're still using the dating apps, aren't you? Messaging on the dating app to then being in an actual relationship and having a girlfriend. Okay, couple of things to note here. First of all, having a girlfriend or being in a relationship is not the goal. That's not the goal. That's the byproduct. That's the result of finding the right kind of person who is actually compatible with you. That's the goal. So if you go out in search of finding a girlfriend or making a relationship, you will probably succeed, but it will not feel like success. It will very much feel like failure because you've succeeded, but you succeeded at the wrong goal. So instead, make sure that from the get-go, from the very beginning, that you are focused on finding the right kind of person, the right kind of girl, who you're actually compatible with, who you can create some kind of a connection with. That's the start. That's the very starting point. Once you do find someone like that, someone where you two get along well, where things click well, where you have good chemistry, where you have good conversations, where you just enjoy each other's company and being around each other. When you find that kind of person, then you're looking for compatibility on what the future looks like for both of you. That's basically what the talk is this whole like boyfriend girlfriend thing. Generally speaking, it is inadvisable for men to be the first to say, hey, I think we should be in a committed relationship. Generally speaking. However, that's not necessarily the case. It can work to your advantage to be the one who comes out first and says that. But I'm going to go out on a limb here and say if you need advice on the blueprint of how to get there in the first place, you should probably hold off. So wait until she brings up the conversation or until things feel natural or some other impetus, some kind of outside situation creates that question that you then need to answer. Again, you should already know what you want your answer to be, right? You should already know before she says, hey, what are we? Hey, are we dating? Hey, are we boyfriend, girlfriend? Something like that. You should already know the answer to that question. But generally speaking, especially for you younger guys out there, I'm going to advise slow rolling it a little bit so that you don't jump the gun too fast. Any of you guys who have hung out with me before, especially if we've gone out drinking, you've probably heard the story of the two bulls. And I'm going to go ahead and tell it again now, for those of you who don't know. So, there were these two bulls who walked over a hill, an old bull and a young bull. And they looked down into the valley below them. And they saw a field full of the most beautiful cows they had ever seen in their lives. And the young bull, in all his excitement, he said, hey, let's run down there and fuck one of them. And the old bull said, no, let's walk down and fuck them all. This story tells us a lot of different things, but one of the most important things to this particular moment is that the young bull, which for those of you in my audience who are younger, who are less experienced, you're going to tend to rush into things because you're trying to get to what you think is the goal as quickly as possible. But you're not, because that's the wrong goal. If you pursue the correct goal, you have complete control over the situation and you can do whatever you want with it. So, for those of you who are younger, less experienced, slow roll the promising of commitment until at least she asks. And then you can say, yeah, of course, boyfriend and girlfriend. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Okay, cool. That's how you can get there. That's how you can deal with the talk if you're younger. Now, if you're a little bit older, if you know what it is that you're looking for, if you know what you want in a relationship, and if you know what you want in a partner and who you're trying to find, then you can kind of dictate the terms. You can say what it is whenever you want. Because you already know, oh, this is the situation. Okay, yeah, we're good. I know all the signs through experience. So the second time that I met Lady North, I told her, hey, you're my girlfriend now. And okay, yeah, I guess so. All right, sure. But that's because I'd had over a decade of experience dealing with all the bullshit, and I knew exactly what I was looking for, and I knew when I'd found it. So there's a big difference there between the younger and inexperienced guys and the older ones who know what they're doing. Next, setting definitions and plans. So there are some things that you won't need to define early on. You know, like, okay, cool, if we're boyfriend and girlfriend, then that naturally implies sexual exclusivity to everybody, anywhere in the world. So that one you don't need to define. But if there are other things, other expectations that you have in a relationship, if you say, by the way, since you're my girlfriend, there are a couple of things that I'm going to expect from this. And you can tell me what you expect from our relationship as well, so that we're clear where we stand with each other, make sure that we don't disappoint each other, right? So that, you know, we can have a good relationship. Because if you don't have that conversation, then you end up stuck in what are called covert contracts. And that's never a good thing. In a social relationship, like friendships or anything like that, in a work relationship, in a romantic relationship, covert contracts exist all the time in all different kind of situations. And if they're not stated explicitly, then they're actually really damaging to the relationship itself. You guys absolutely know what I'm talking about. If you've ever had a boss or somebody like that say something like, oh, by the way, I need you to come in and work this Saturday. And you said, wait, what? No, like, we talked about this before, right? I don't work Saturdays. That's not a thing. And they said, well, yeah, but I need you to. Their expectation that they never said was that you would drop everything and do what they wanted because you're working for them. And you had the expectation that they would not ask you to do anything that they had not clearly stated, right? Which is actually a perfectly fine and healthy expectation. So the same thing exists in relationships, in romantic relationships, where a lot of times people will expect something from a boyfriend or a girlfriend, but they won't say it. And then they'll be very, very disappointed when the person doesn't do that thing. In order to prevent that, early on, you can have a conversation with her and you can say, by the way, there are a couple of things that I expect from this relationship. I want to let you know now so that I can make sure that we're on the same page. And I want you to also tell me what you expect from this relationship, from me, right? This will make sure that I know what it is that you expect me to do or not do. And then we can make sure that we're on the same page. Because if I started dating Lady North and she said, oh, by the way, now that you're my girlfriend or now that you're my boyfriend, I expect you to quit drinking with your friends, I would say, oh, okay, cool. I had no idea. Right, so this is already a no-go. This is not going to work, right? So if there are some expectations like that or some things, some deal breakers, then it's better to get them out of the way early on so that you don't have to, again, waste your time, your resources, your energy on all of that stuff on a relationship that's eventually going to be doomed because of these hidden expectations or these covert contracts that could have just been said at the very beginning and saved all the time, effort, and heartache. So have a talk. And it doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be serious. Even though a lot of the advice I'm going to give here, it's not particularly romantic. It's not particularly exciting. These are important things. Don't do them all at once, right? Don't be what was his name? The character's name in American Psycho? Like the Christian Bale character? Whatever. Don't be that guy was it Patrick Bates? Is that it? Anyway, don't go American Psycho on her and just sit down and be like, okay, so let's design exactly how our relationship is going to look, and we need to write it out on paper and then sign a contract of it. You don't need to be like that. But it is important to have some conversations like this, and you can have them little by little. You can have them one at a time, or you can just sit down and say, all right, cool. I have a few things I'd like to talk about, and I think it would be good if we just got them all out of the way now. You can do that as well. Be human about it. Don't be weird. Don't be a psychopath about it. And these will actually help to improve your relationship, not damage it. Now, the next thing, right? Cultural considerations. This is a big one. This goes back with the expectations thing, especially if you're dating somebody from another country, another culture, hell, even across the country, they might have different expectations of what a relationship looks like, of what a boyfriend does, of what a girlfriend does. I know that out here in Korea, I was completely taken aback whenever I first started dating girls here, because they were like, you know, sometimes I message you and you don't even answer me for like 2 hours. Why is that? Are you not interested in me? Whoa, wait, what is this? Like, of course I didn't answer for 2 hours. Like, I had shit to do. I was busy. Okay, cool. So they had an expectation that I would always answer messages quickly, and I did not have that expectation. So make sure that you talk about some of those things, about what does it mean to be a boyfriend or a girlfriend in this culture, in this place, with this person. Because just like you've been indoctrinated with shit since you were a child, they have too. Try to understand where they're coming from. And some of the things might be something you can negotiate about, right? Where it's like, oh, well, I know that in Korea, people, couples, they message each other all the time, 60, 70, 100, 200 times a day. Okay, cool. Well, that's interesting, but that's unreasonable to me. So, let's kind of calm that down a little bit. So you can talk through those things. It doesn't have to be a deal breaker, even if you don't want to do it. It can be something where you're like, right, well, are you comfortable with taking less of that? Because that's not a thing that I can do. So again, have that conversation, talk those things out. Something that might seem like the most important thing to you right now, or might seem like a deal breaker to you, once you actually have the conversation and you see what other kinds of possibilities and options there are, that might help you to see the difference between the ideal and the real. The difference between some concept you have in your mind versus actually on the ground. No, now that I say that out loud, that does sound pretty fucking silly, doesn't it? So have those talks. Think about the cultural aspects as well. Next is future, right? What does a possible or a potential future look like? Or does it at all? Because sometimes you might find yourself getting into a relationship or having a date with somebody who has plans to move across the country after a couple of weeks, or to go to a study abroad program in 3 months or something like that. And that's an important thing to consider whenever you're thinking about, am I actually going to consider a relationship here or not? Because if I do, I need to know what the next 3 to 6 to 12 months look like. What plans do you already have in place? And then we can figure out like, oh, okay, cool. Well, if you're leaving the country in a month, then this is fun, but it's not that serious. And you can have that talk, and you can make sure to consider that as a possibility or as not a possibility based on already set plans. Now, there are situations, again, especially once you're a bit more experienced in relationships, where you can meet somebody, even though, like in our buddy Paul's case, you can meet somebody who you hit it off with really well, but you're planning on leaving the country in less than a month. Okay, cool. You can have that discussion then and say, right, is this a thing that we can turn into a relationship? Can it function as a long distance relationship? If so, what might that look like? Like I said before, think through all this in your head first before you have the conversation. Know what you expect, know what your boundaries are, what's the gray area that you're willing to kind of negotiate on, work with, and what's not. What's a hard no, right? Have these self-discussions first, and then have the discussion with her if it seems like something that you can build into an actual relationship. All right, last thing on here. Holidays, rituals, traditions. One of our guys in the community asked me about dealing with holidays and traditions in a relationship, and I'm not entirely sure what it is that he wanted on this one. So I just added it in here, and I'm gonna kind of go off on it a little bit, but I don't think that this one is as big a deal as he thinks it is. If you have holidays or traditions or something like that, it's all pure negotiation. That's just a normal part of relationships. That's the same as like going on dates or hanging out with her annoying friend Bridget, who just won't ever shut the fuck up about Kim Kardashian, right? Like it's one of those things. It's just a basic part of the negotiation in a relationship. What are you willing to accept? What are you willing to tolerate? What do you enjoy? What do you not enjoy? How do you feel about doing it? Are you willing to do it even though you don't enjoy it? Is it something that you can kind of build in and it's okay? What is she going to do on your end as well? Without more clarification about what it is that he's looking for here, I'm not sure that I can give much better advice than that. However, in my own situation, we live in Korea and my wife is Korean, which means that we celebrate Korean holidays, right? We go over to her family's house. We do all the Korean traditions. We do the rituals. I go over, I join in because I'm part of the family. And that's part of the gig, right? And the same thing would be true in America. She would come to my family gatherings, the family events, the holidays, the traditions, the rituals, all of that stuff. That's something that you share with one another. And I wouldn't jump too quickly into it. Like if I started dating someone on November 15th, I wouldn't invite her to Thanksgiving because that's a lot. Depending on your family, that might be more damaging than helpful. So that's something to keep in mind. But generally, holidays, rituals, traditions, vacations as well, all of that stuff, that's just general relationship negotiation. As long as you have a clear communication and you're both open and willing to work on it, then you should be okay.